Blessings, beloveds. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer. Thank you for tuning in again with me today. And thank you to all of you who are supportive and who are subscribing to my channel. And thank you for the questions and comments as well. I appreciate all of you and everything that is asked or commented about. Okay, so today's video, I decided to just make a few comments about transcendence of our birth charts. I think when you're learning astrology, when you're first learning astrology, depending on, I guess, where you are within your own self as well, from a point of evolution and consciousness, you know, when you pick up a book and you read the meaning of Venus in Pisces or Venus in Capricorn, or the Moon in Aquarius, or Saturn in Taurus, or whatever the case, you're obviously going to find quite a specific psychological interpretation for all the planets in all the signs. So the point I'm trying to make is this, that as I've said before, there are 12 zodiac signs, and there are, you know, about 10 planets and a number of different asteroids if you use asteroids in your astrology work. So that's the basis of your astrology. In fact, your 12 zodiac signs and the 12 houses are the absolute core of the archetypal energy that's coming through. And how that comes through in terms of at what level it's being experienced and expressed or understood, obviously is a very unique and individual experience for each of us. So every person in Capricorn doesn't necessarily express Venus in Capricorn in the exact same way, because of course it's going to depend on a number of different things, such as, well, where is Venus placed in their chart, what aspects does it have, etc. So the birth chart is it's a blueprint, essentially, of a number of different archetypes that exist within all of us. All the archetypes are within every single one of us. There's not one of us on the planet that doesn't have one of those 12 archetypes within us, being expressed or emerging or evolving or transforming in some kind of way, the 12 archetypes being the 12 zodiac signs. So when you're working with astrology, your absolute baseline needs to be a very deep, thorough and comprehensive understanding of the 12 zodiac signs, because everything emerges from those. And everything that emerges after that, as in the birth chart being the 12 zodiac signs and the 12 houses, everything that comes after that, such as the planets and the aspects, and then when you start moving further into looking at I suppose predictive elements of astrology, what you're doing is you're building layers upon layers upon layers. So the core and the base is always the 12 archetypal signs. Okay, so if you are new at astrology, I would suggest that you truly study the 12 zodiacal signs before you look at anything else, because without that deep understanding of those 12 archetypal signs and how they all merge to each other, how they all connect to each other, and how none of them are separate from each other, essentially, because, you know, each sign has its polarity point. So when you're looking at one particular sign, you're always taking into consideration its opposite sign, which is its polarity point. So that is your core fundamental basics of astrology. Now, with regards to when you're reading the interpretation of signs and planets and houses, and you're reading, for example, if you're looking at the area of planetary rulerships, for instance, which you need to when you're looking at your chart or anybody's chart, because by assessing the condition of the planet is this: it's what sign is it in, what house is it in, and what aspects does it have. Now, you hear that over and over and over again through my videos and you know, many other people's videos. And the reason you continue to hear it is because those are the layers that start to build the story about your chart, and how those energies, those archetypal energies, are playing out, are being expressed, are evolving. So, with regards to the evolutionary pathway that a person is on, according to evolutionary astrology, there are 4 levels of evolutionary parts or stages that each of us are in. And I have mentioned those before. So go back to the other videos, perhaps, to remind yourself if you haven't made a note of it. And in addition to that, I mean, evolutionary astrology has emerged from Jeffrey Wolf Green, and he has incorporated some works of other people's work into his work as well, such as Carl Jung, for instance. So, you know, one of the evolutionary states that we are in, or could be in, is called the individuation process. And that term and that work derives from Carl Jung. It's not Jeffrey's work, but Jeffrey has incorporated into his astrological evolutionary work. So it's really worth understanding what that whole individuation process actually means. And you certainly can get that through Jeffrey's books and Jeffrey's work, but you can also get a great understanding from the person who came up and coined that term, which is Carl Jung. So, you know, sometimes there's been some questions or comments about, you know, for example, if somebody had Jupiter in detriment or fall, which according to, you know, traditional astrology, when you've got Jupiter in detriment or fall, and I've touched on this in a previous video when I've talked about planets in detriment or fall, exaltation and or rulership, Jupiter in detriment or fall, or any planet for that matter in detriment or fall, does struggle. You know, there is an element of struggle, and there is an element of that the planet that is in detriment or fall loses something about its natural function and ability is lost in some kind of way because of the fact that it's in detriment or fall. Some people don't necessarily agree with that, and that's okay, you don't have to, but it is important to understand that this idea of rulership, exaltation, detriment and fall has validity. It has its place, it has got meaning, and it has got something to show and describe about how these planetary energies are playing out. That's the baseline of, you know, understanding a planet's condition. You must understand whether it's in rulership, exaltation, fall, or detriment. Understand what it means when it is in one of those places to begin with. And then obviously to further assess the condition of that planet, you would be looking at its house placement and its aspects to the other planets, because the house placement, the sign placement, and the aspects are layers which create a whole story of how a particular planet is operating in front functioning. So, you might have a planet in, let me just think of an example here. Okay, so you might have Jupiter in Virgo, right, which is in its detriment. But let's just say that Jupiter in Virgo was in the 12th house. Well, then it's accidentally dignified because of its house placement. So it's in detriment by sign, but it's dignified by house placement because Jupiter rules the 12th house. So there's a lot of things to be aware of and to take into consideration when you read the meaning of Jupiter in detriment or fall, or the Sun in detriment or fall, or any other planet. You're not just taking that statement in isolation and reading that as that's the beginning and the end of how that particular planet will play out. The meaning to each sign, each planet, and each house is your baseline. It's the inherent archetypal energy of the signs, the planets, and the houses. But how they are functioning and operating depends on a number of different things, as I've mentioned several times already. So I just wanted to make that clear because some people think that, well, if you're reading Venus in detriment, so Venus in Scorpio is in detriment, for instance, because Scorpio is the opposite sign to Taurus, and Venus rules Taurus. So it is said that when Venus is in Scorpio, well, because it's in its detriment, it is functioning in a different way. It's not functioning in rulership, it's functioning in some kind of detriment. And in very simple, mundane psychological terms, a Venus in Scorpio, well, let me just bring this factor in. Venus in Virgo is actually in its fall. So Venus in Scorpio detriment, Venus in Virgo fall. Now, both of those positions are not the strongest point for Venus to be in, but out of those two, it would be Venus in Virgo that, in my opinion, through what I've observed through the years, Venus in Virgo is the more difficult one. And a very simple reason for that is because Venus in Scorpio, the thing that it has going for it in a really positive way is that because Scorpio is such a strong feeling sign, Venus in Scorpio just feels incredibly strongly, in relationships, and all the different facets that have to do with relationships and relating and values and what they enjoy and so forth. Just keeping it very, very simple. But Venus in Virgo, which is its fall position, it can be incredibly hard in relationships because the inherent archetypal energy of Virgo, which has the critical component within it, it has that critical analytical function. So what happens with the Venus in Virgo is that the person is just incredibly, can be, incredibly judgmental and critical of their partner or partners. So that doesn't really create an energy that nurtures and fosters acceptance and love in a relationship. I mean, if you're judging and criticizing, how is the other person supposed to feel loved and appreciated? So Venus is about love and appreciation, and Virgo is not about love and appreciation, particularly when it's in the sign of Venus. So, okay. I've kind of gone a little bit off track there, but anyway, that was important to mention. I guess these points are just to get you thinking that when you are looking at your own chart or somebody else's chart, you must always take into consideration, well, first of all, what evolutionary path they're on from a soul level. And as I've mentioned before, you know, their cultural background, their social status, if you like, their upbringing, their belief systems. You know, all these things are really important to help you understand, because somebody born on the same day as you, same time as you, same year as you, but on a different part of the planet, who's born into an entirely different family to you, who has a very different economic, you know, sort of upbringing and structure, a different cultural background, and a different belief system. Well, clearly they're going to experience their life entirely different to you, even though you're both born same time, same day, same date, etc. So, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say, which is really obvious, is that every single one of us is, you know, completely unique. Just like on a tree, if you look at the leaves or the branches on a tree, there are no two leaves that are identical. There are no two branches that are identical. To the physical naked eye, it might look like they look the same, but in fact they're not. So none of us are the same in that sense. We're all absolutely unique, but we are all working with these same archetypal energies and principles through the signs, houses, planets, and aspects. But they are emerging and operating differently based on these factors, our upbringing, family, beliefs, etc., and our own evolutionary state of consciousness and awareness. So, can we transcend our birth chart? Yes, I think we can. You know, the birth chart is not, it's not suggesting that we are bound and confined by the description of the inherent archetypal energies as they appear. The ability to transcend and transform is there for every single one of us. So, because that is there for every single one of us, of course we have the ability to transcend these energies within ourselves, and therefore obviously transcend our consciousness, our understanding of life, our understanding of ourselves, and our understanding of our conscious soul evolutionary path and where we are at any given moment on that path. Now, in terms of, just very briefly, the astrology that you need to be looking at and pay attention to give you some clues and ideas and even some very specific details if you're able to read the chart on this kind of level. The things that you need to be looking at is the south node in the birth chart and the north node, that is the moon's nodes, because every single planet has nodes, but we don't draw them into the birth chart. The two nodes that are always there visible to see, which are known as Rahu and Ketu in Vedic astrology, always they are representing a pathway that has come from somewhere, as in a past, south node, and the north node, its opposite point, is the direction that our soul has chosen in this incarnation to follow through into, to grow into, to evolve into. And how well we do that, how easy we do that. Actually, easy is not the right word. I don't think moving from the south node to the north node is an easy journey at all. In fact, to the contrary, it's extremely challenging, which is why the majority of people resist it, and they end up hanging around on their south node, which is the familiar, the known, what feels more certain, what feels familiar, yeah. So it's like, you know, where you stand right now, and if you look at your current environment and you know where everything is in your house, and you feel quite at ease with that, don't you? You know where your bedroom is, you know where your kitchen is. It's not an unfamiliar territory. That's the south node. It's what we know, it's what we're comfortable in. Even if it is producing extreme challenges, in the sense where it keeps bringing up old patterns and themes, old psychological, behavioral stuff, patterns that present in quite a painful way, we still tend to stay there because that's, I think that's the ego keeping us there. Because the ego doesn't like to be challenged. The ego likes to be safe. But the soul has a fairly different agenda to the ego. So one of the really important things for all of us to try and achieve in this incarnation is to basically bring the soul life and the ego at a level where they are working together, as opposed to working in totally different pathways. Because when they are in totally different pathways, that is resistance, and that is also when we experience a great deal of pain and suffering. It's that inability to let go and to detach and to trust and to move into the unknown. Because moving into the unknown requires courage, because you're taking a risk. And the unknown, it doesn't have that sense of a guarantee. There's no guarantee in life on any level, actually. The only certainty really is that we are born into this body, we leave this body, and while we are here in this body, we consistently go through transitions and changes. Those three things are really the only certainties of this existence. Everything else is unknown and uncertain. So when you are looking at the south node in your chart, you're looking at the sign that the south node is in. And I've touched on this in greater depth and detail in one of my previous videos, where I talk about the south node and the north node and through the signs. So, maybe revisit that to get a little bit more information. This is the purpose of raising this at the moment, is to identify what in the birth chart points to that ability, that desire to transcend our chart, which is entirely possible. And a lot of people have done it and are doing it. So, south node, its sign. Now, the south node, the location of it and its sign, the sign that it's in, that you were born into, has a lot to say about past energies. And so the sign will describe something about, could be one past life, or it could be several past lives. The sign will describe something about where you were in a past life, you know, the type of environment you were in, and the energies you were working with. The ruler to the South Node and its current placement in your birth chart is also another clue to what you've brought in from the past, and certainly what you are needing to move into this incarnation. The aspects that the South Node has is the next thing you need to look at, because that too will show you perhaps what's holding you back in that South Node sign energy, archetypal energy, or what may in fact be assisting you to move into the polarity point, which is the North Node. So you're looking at South Node, house, location, the sign it's in, the aspects it has, and you look at where its ruler is as well. Then you look at the North Node, where the North Node is located in your birth chart, what sign is the North Node in. Obviously it's going to be in the opposite sign of the South Node. What aspects does the North Node have, if any, and therefore, you know, what is supporting your North Node path, your evolution, soul's evolution, your soul's evolutionary path, in other words. And then you bring in Pluto. So, you know, Pluto's house placement, sign placement, and aspects. You start to draw a story when you start to... So remove everything from the chart and just put the nodes and Pluto to begin with. And study the South Node, North Node, its locations. Study Pluto's location, sign, and once you start to get a sense and a feel for that, then you can start to add in the other planets so that you can add the next layer and level in, because the other planets are like the other characters in the story that are interacting with your evolutionary path. The other thing to look at as well is the 12th house. The 12th house can very easily indicate and point to unresolved past life patterns, behaviors, things that we need to resolve, essentially. But because, and what I mean by that is planets in the 12th house. But planets in the 12th house are incredibly, for lack of a better word, incredibly challenging to reach. Not impossible. I don't think anything is impossible. But 12th house planets are operating from an entirely different level of existence and experience. And, you know, depending on what kind of person you are and what part of your evolutionary pathway you are in, and what the planets are that are in the 12th house and what signs they're in, and then what are the aspects to those planets, will also define, you know, how you work with that 12th house energy and how you potentially resolve it. But first of all, to begin with, how you even access that energy. 12th house is, it's the ocean. It's so vast and so deep, and it's not of this material 3D world. So, you know, if you're a Neptunian type of person, or a Pisces, or have, you know, planets in Pisces or planets in the 12th house, or have Neptune prominently placed in your birth chart, then you could say in very simple terms. Obviously there are exceptions, there are lots of things to take into account, but just very generally speaking, the Pisces, Neptune and Jupiter energy is really, really powerful to assist us to get in touch with that 12th house archetypal energy and the unresolved patterns and karmic themes that we've brought in, and how we can make those energies conscious, because the 12th house is very unconscious. So how do we make those energies conscious in a healthy way that's supportive to our evolutionary path? And, you know, the most obvious and common ways to do that is through, you know, meditation, hypnotherapy, past life regression work, healing work with crystals. There's lots of different ways. I'm just naming some of the more obvious and common and well-known, I suppose, practices, you could say. Also the moon, the location and sign and aspects to your natal moon is really, really important, because the moon also has a quality about it that has to do with past lives as well. And so, for example, say you had moon conjunct Saturn or moon conjunct Pluto, and let's put it in the 12th house. That's a very, very complex moon, indicating and reflecting some very deep, important, powerful, painful issues to do with your mother that need to be resolved and worked through this lifetime. So yeah, the moon is also an indicator of the past, and, you know, and then we can go a step further and we can bring Saturn in, because Saturn also has an element of it that describes past and karma and what we consciously need to work through this lifetime. Saturn is probably one of the more difficult aspects to work on in this physical dimension, because of its inherent limitations and restrictions. The other thing that is really important to look at is what moon phase you were born into. That's very telling as well, in terms of connecting that to your evolutionary path and what that has to say when you connect it with all the other things that I mentioned. So, for example, if you were born during a balsamic moon phase, that's pretty significant. I mean, all the phases are significant. There are 8 of them, and they're all very, very important. They all have very distinct and specific attributes and characteristics of the relationship between the sun and the moon, because that's essentially what we're talking about. When you're looking at your moon phase, you're looking at the basic relationship between the sun and the moon in your birth chart, and the dance between them, and where they're at in their dance together, and what is needing to come forth and expressed and developed and understood. So if you were born during a balsamic phase, the balsamic phase is the last phase out of the 8, and it is the phase where basically most of the moon is black. There's only just a light little slither of light. So it's the dark phase of the moon, you could say, or the darkest. And the balsamic moon phase is, it essentially indicates that the soul born into this phase has come in to focus very, very intently, very strongly on very specific things that need to be completed. It's really important that they complete very specific things in this lifetime. And the person born during a balsamic phase will sense this. There'll be a sense of intensity and urgency of needing to complete certain things, and that can show up in a number of different ways, but it does show up a lot in relationships, whether it's in family dynamics or personal one-on-one relationships. But there's this underlying sense that they really need to complete something and finish it, and it's not easy, I must say. This can often be the person who is more of an internal kind of person, in the sense of they're not super interested in the world out there, so to speak. So there's a lot going on internally, and there's a strong inherent calling or need to complete very important things in this lifetime. So there you go. There's a number of different things that you really need to be focusing on and looking into very, very deeply that create the story of your chart. And this is just one major component of things to be studying and to be looking at. But the point of this video was to answer the question, can an individual transcend the energies in their chart? Yes, they can, in my opinion. And the things that I've discussed today are the things that will show you how this person is transcending their chart, or if indeed they are at all. So hopefully that's useful for you and helpful to get you thinking about some things if you haven't already thought of this stuff yourself. And like I said, just draw up a chart and remove everything but the nodes and Pluto, and just study those alone, because when you've got everything else in the chart, it's quite a distraction. The chart is very busy when you add everything in it, so your mind is kind of darting everywhere. So a more effective way is to just start a process like the one that I've just suggested, and get a feel and an understanding of that through your reading that you do, reading books, etc., and through meditation practices as well. When you do meditations, in the sense of doing meditation on the archetypal energies and the astrology, you can start to internalize these energies in a conscious way, and you can start to kind of put light there, if you like. You can illuminate these energies through your meditation practices, and this is a really useful thing to do just with your own chart, so that you can connect deeper with your actual birth chart, as opposed to it just being a piece of paper with a circle and symbols. Okay, so I'll leave it there, and I'm going to do another video probably in the next couple of days. I'm not sure what it's going to be on, but I'm feeling, I need to do another one. So I'll leave this video here for today, and thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, and please feel free to ask any questions or make any comments, and please share this video if it was interesting or inspiring for you. And thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.